Throughout the years, the cost of living continues to soar high. Inflation happens when there is a great demand, yet low supply to meet this demand. In our case, inflation persists because both the government and the private sector cannot meet our demands and needs. Not only that, but taxation policies such as the train law puts our poorest communities into greater debt. There has been an increase in the sin tax, but some of our fellow Filipinos rely greatly on selling cigarettes on the streets. Our sari-sari stores selling alcohol and those with sugar components were all heavily taxed. For 6 months, we were promised total eradication of drugs, of winning the war against it. But what have we gained instead? Hundreds of extrajudicial killings, of innocent lives being taken away for the sake of cleaning up the numbers. It has been the pride of the administration. As reported by the Philippine Drug Enforcement through Rappler sources last 2019, how 5,000 drug suspects were killed in operations and 7,000 high-value targets were arrested. Do these numbers equate to success? How do we measure it? Most certainly by figures, but do these 1,000 drug suspects killed mean the war is won if there are 100 killed because of unjustified killings? Have we forgotten the cases of the non-laban Filipinos? What happened to our justice system of requiring a warrant first before imprisonment? What happened to our basic constitutional right of being granted a lawyer first before securing our rights? What happened to our basic principle of law? Innocent until proven guilty. Who decides who to punish and convict? It is not the court, but why? In this war on drugs, the judgment is given to the armed forces. The war on drugs has not been won and will never be a success if there are still unresolved cases of extrajudicial killings. The administration should be perpetually reminded of this. In my view, this upcoming election is the most anticipated one right after overthrowing a dictator back in 1986. With the presence of pandemic, noises of killings, and inhuman treatment, Filipinos are eager for positive change. Like most elections, there are candidates of different political party lists. There are candidates who may not be suited, yet create headlines just because of their charm or popularity. Philippine politics might be a complex jungle and an internal tug of war of power. But at the end of the day, I am hopeful that in this election, Filipinos will elect the right leader. As the time progresses, so should our views. Truthfully, I don't see any rationality of those against same-sex marriage. Most of their stances were based on the holy teachings. But what happened to the basic human rights of choosing the people we would love? Even the leader of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis, is in favor of giving respect and just treatment to our LGBT community. But then, opposing parties would argue, why is there a need for marriage when our modern society gives them already freedom to be in a relationship? See, this is where their views are short-sighted. Marriage by law allows them to have equal rights when it comes to joint properties and finances, and further allow them to adopt legally. Same-sex marriage does not harm anyone, maybe just some people's fragile and century-old views that these people are not open to change. We have been on the bottom of the ladder when it comes to our pandemic response. The majority of our neighboring countries already opened their schools, and this was made possible because of their effective government policies in response to the pandemic. While I am in great favor of closing our schools until cases subside, there is a great picture that is unnoticed. Our COVID cases remain high because of ineffectiveness in our policies and administration. The great question is, until when? Until when should the student wait for practical education to be taught? Until when should their future wait? Online classes will never suffice the learnings and new perspective brought in person education. It will always be a great puzzle to me how this man was elected. Perhaps because of his great promises, or his rigid leadership, or maybe because of him giving a father figure that can protect us. 6 years after his campaign, has he been any of this? Still, I will give credit to some of his policies that truly help alleviate the conditions of the Filipinos. But this will never account for his misogynistic views, openly rude statement, and inhuman guilt. Is he the kind of leader that can represent us at international conferences? Will he openly mock them and say rude things to them? Duterte and Dead might be a father figure, but what our country needs is empathy and inclusive leadership, not a rigid one that continues to wreck our otherwise caring culture towards one another.